Because I don't think they're trying to protect themselves. I think they're trying to wipe out Palestinians. That's what the evidence suggests.
Well, I think, okay, then look, I'm trying to be empathetic. You don't have empathy for the Jewish people, it appears, or for the Israeli state. And I understand
that's such a cheap trick. You're basically saying I'm an anti-Semite because I'm critical of what's happening in Gaza. Do you think I'm an anti-Semite, Congressman?
I didn't, Kyle, I did not use that term. What I'm saying is I'm empathizing.
You're very clearly implying it.
You're saying I have crocodile tears. I'm trying to tell you that right now, it is a disaster in the Middle East. Both people have been suffering for generations.
This was a spicy debate. Dean Phillips is a weird guy. He has the charisma of a carp, as I like to say. But to his credit, he has taken a few stances, which I did not necessarily predict. Recently, he came out in favor of single-payer healthcare, Medicare for all. So that was definitely surprising. I just wanted to, throw out there that he has had a few positions which separate him from his more neoliberal colleagues in the House. Coming out in favor of universal healthcare was a big one. Unfortunately, on Israel, he has some work. He has some work to do. And that was illustrated by this really, really good debate on the Krystal Kyle and Friends podcast, where they got into it. Emotions were high in this one, and not just from Krystal and Kyle, but from Dean Phillips himself.
Based on the law, period.
We can move on. We can move on.
That means Hamas in Israel. And all I'm looking for is this. I just want to make this case. I know I don't look like someone whose community is really suffering too right now. I know I don't look like someone who, needs any help or support or is facing any kind of threat whatsoever. I just look like a white, privileged man. I know that. But I would just ask that both of you and people watching have some empathy for a group of people right now around the world who have been suffering for generations, who are scared out of their wits right now for their children too, and who have great empathy for Palestinian people like me. And I just wish progressives can unite around something much more important than which side you're on, which is the side of humanity. And I understand the appalling nature of this whole thing. I would just ask that you understand how the ignorance of how another people are suffering who look like me, that don't look like we need any help, is actually a really big issue. And I would just ask you to think about that.
Suffering doesn't justify atrocity.
Yeah, and let's be clear, North Gaza has been wiped off the map, Congressman. North Gaza is gone.
That is resulting from the anti-Semitism that is resulting from this is really dangerous and really horrifying for people. And I can tell you don't totally understand that. I'm not asking to do anything else other than to listen to what I just said and understand.
Pause it right there.
I know it's not the same thing.
Potshot came out right there. He's like, I know you don't understand anti-Semitism. It's like, bro, what anti-Semitism are you seeing domestically or abroad that is at any remote proximity to the scale and the horror and the devastation and destruction that Kyle pointed out happened and is happening in North Gaza? But I mean, essentially it's been obliterated, right? And we've seen, dude, the thing that sucks about people who are, trying to simp for the IDF and, overshadow their crimes, because for what it's worth, obviously, Gavin and I have never, ever shied away from calling out real anti-Semitism when it exists. It's a real thing. It's a phenomenon that exists a lot of times in America, and oftentimes overlapping with the people who are some of the most strongest cheerleaders of Israel. Take RFK Jr., for example, his crazy vaccine conspiracy theories and the, anti-Semitic implications that he made, but then now also going like full bore and like Rabbi Shmuley's like best friend and all of that kind of stuff. So it's not about that, but it's just kind of used as a defense mechanism, as a shield from criticism, which is why this guy keeps bringing it up, because obviously Krystal and Kyle are sincere in their determination to oppose anti-Semitism, and they have absolutely no malice in their heart. And the fact that it has to keep constantly coming back to that when they're just out here saying okay, but listen, we want to stop these atrocities that are going on over here. They're not targeting Hamas, they're destroying everything within fucking sight of it. And we can see the IDF making TikToks saying, oh, this used to be fucking Gaza. They didn't deserve a place so beautiful. Look at how the beach looks now. I can't wait to build resorts here. Right? That's the self-talk that's going on with the soldiers that are occupying land that has, historically, been Palestinian.
Yep. And just in case anyone was wondering, because we fast forwarded like 20 minutes into this, nothing anti-Semitic was said before he decided to throw that out there. Just in case anyone was wondering, we're not selectively editing this to make it just seem like he was spouting off for, something. Like, no, they didn't say anything anti-Semitic. It was completely unwarranted for him to imply that, in my opinion.
No more than the Jews that were brutalized and killed and raped by Hamas fighters, any more than the indiscriminate loss of life in Gaza. But please understand, the fear in other communities that don't maybe seem like it's existing. And that's how a lot of Jewish people are feeling right now. And I'm afraid without a little bit of that empathy, you're going to see a flight of Jewish progressives from the Democratic Party that's going to make solving these problems even more difficult. I'm just asking for some
let me
empathy.
interject.
That's all.
Let me interject. My primary concern at the moment is what I view as an ongoing genocide in Gaza. Okay. So I'm just going to give you the numbers here. This is from Euromed Monitor, the human rights group. We have 30,676 Palestinians who have been killed. 12,040 of them are children. 6,103 of them are women. Of the 30,676 Palestinians killed, 28,201 of them are civilians. We have 58,960 people injured. There's been 105 journalists who've been killed. Many of them, there's tremendous evidence that they've been targeted on purpose. Of the 2.3 million residents of Gaza, 1.935 million of them are displaced. There's 67,946 homes that have been completely destroyed. We have 201 mosques that have been bombed, 3 churches that have been bombed, 169 healthcare facilities that have been bombed, 198 heritage sites that have been bombed. What we're looking at here, I think it's a genocide. I think South Africa is right. Clearly you disagree with that, but the crocodile tears I find a little insulting. This idea that we should care more about feelings of some people as a whole group of people is getting.
Kyle got mad. He's like, bro, don't come on my fucking podcast and talk to me like this. I get it. He's still reserved and respectful, right? He didn't get that. He didn't get the Gavin Miller pile driver. How dare you? I get it. I that's one of my favorite moments. I can see whenever I can see Gavin come out of his skin and just be like, oh, we've lost the guest. This is war now. Now the line in the sand has been drawn, and it's we're burning the bridge. So let me just pour some gasoline if I can get my shots in. Kyle's obviously more reserved, but I could see the look in his eyes. He's like, oh, you're gonna take a shot at me? All right, I'm gonna take a shot at you. Crocodile tears. Let's talk about this. Oh, I know I might not look like this as a white man and blah blah. Like dude, this guy. This is why if Donald Trump gets back in office, people like Dean Phillips are the reason why. It's because they're just that liberal kind of mindset, the way that he presents himself to the world, the way that he talks, everything about I don't know, that's the fucking smug, stupid look on his face. There's just something about it, right? Oh, you think I'm a white guy and you don't understand that my people are really hurting? Yeah, Dean, my people are hurting too. They're called the poor. What are you gonna do about it? You're a fucking congressman. Oh yeah, you want me to fucking what are you talking about? You want me to care about you? Like I understand that 10/7 was a horrible thing for people. It's like 9/11, right? But I'm not still out here shedding tears for 9/11. I'm like, we destroyed an entire region in retaliation, right? We did 2 illegal offensive wars, right? We fucking the 9/11 that wasn't sanctioned by a country. They were a fucking militant group. When we went to war with the Taliban, we just occupied all of Afghanistan and everything that fucking came with it. Iraq never attacked us at all. And for a fact of the matter, what was it, Gavin? The majority for sure, but I can never remember the exact number of the 9/11 pilots that were fucking from Saudi Arabia, right? And then we ushered the Bin Laden family. Yeah, it's like 9 or some shit like that. It was a lot of the fucking guys. Somebody in chat will tell me the number. I don't know exactly, but it's a majority of them. Then we ushered the Bin Laden family out of Florida. Convenient. Jeb Bush always looking out for his brother and bailing him out of jail, right? Then they get him on. You know what I'm saying? Anyway, I'm not still crying about obviously it's horrible what happened to those families, and nobody would ever say that it wasn't to the victims of the 9/11 fucking massacre. But we wouldn't be out here spending every day talking about we need to fucking do something about the fucking scale of the atrocities now. It's like that was bad, right? But it's kind of like, oh, this guy killed my daughter, and so then I set fire to the entire town he grew up in, and I, executed all the men, women, and children in my way. You know what I mean? I went Anakin Skywalker. It's just that's not how you retaliate, right? But anyway, I just wanted to pause it because I could see the tone shift in Kyle. He's like, all right, this is how it's gonna go. This is how it's gonna go. And there's 5 minutes left, so I'm excited to see how it escalates from here because As soon as you say, one thing I like about the term crocodile tears is, like, in my mind, and I imagine to a lot of people's minds, you immediately think of our guest earlier this morning, Norman Finkelstein, when he had that exchange with the college student who tried to call him out, and he was like, he's like, save the crocodile tears. If you had any like heart or soul in you, you'd be crying for the Palestinians or something like that. I can't remember the exact quote. Right. I don't want to misquote it, but it was something along those lines. That's what I always think of when it comes to crocodile tears. I imagine it draws some sort of a similar resonance with Dean Phillips. So I'm interested to see where this goes.
Wiped off the map. North Gaza is gone. It doesn't exist anymore. It's rubble. And Ben Gvir and Smotrich have announced a plan of ethnic cleansing. Why should that not be the main focus and the main concern, especially when it's my money and our weapons that are being used for it?
Well, I don't know what, Kyle, first of all, accuse me of having crocodile tears. Come on.
Come on, bro. I told you I knew this is where it's going. Yeah, I could have told you. I was like, shame on you, Kyle. You know what? I didn't want to have these I didn't want to wonder about you. You dyed your hair blonde. You're sitting up straight. You've got a suit jacket, but there were some other people with blonde hair and jackets, pal.
Yeah, come on. He's such like a fucking dad or something. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, he's like the Midwestern dad archetype of like the cartoon character with like the bathrobe that's like got a cup of coffee that's just like strolling out in his white picket lawn to pick up the paper at the end of the street, but also just with the most insufferable politics.
Yeah, and again, it's like I don't even really understand why it's very relevant to bring up this issue of anti-Semitism, and there are people that look just like me that are terrified for their like. They're talking about a genocide that's ongoing, and they're asking you whether or not you agree it's a genocide. It's kind of besides the point how you and your family members feel. You know what I'm saying? Like, I'm genuinely sorry if anyone in Dean Phillips' family has experienced any anti-Semitism. That would obviously be disgusting, but I promise whatever they've experienced doesn't hold a candle to the absolutely horrific situation.
But I have great empathy, and I feel the same way about the loss of innocent human life. And I can't hear, I've not heard you say one thing empathetic. I've not heard you say one thing empathetic towards a country and people that have been prosecuted, persecuted, oppressed, and killed in mass for generations. The only reason my family's an American family, Kyle, is because they escaped pogroms in Europe. Israel is also trying to protect itself. You never talk about it.
Because I don't think they're trying to protect themselves. I think they're trying to wipe out Palestinians. That's what the evidence suggests.
Well, I think, okay, then look I'm trying to be empathetic. You don't have empathy for the Jewish people, it appears, or for the Israeli state. And I understand
that's such a cheap trick. You're basically saying I'm an anti-Semite because I'm critical of what's happening in Gaza. Do you think I'm an anti-Semite, Congressman?
I didn't, Kyle, I did not use that term. What I'm saying is I'm empathizing.
You're very clearly implying it.
You're saying I have crocodile tears. I'm trying to tell you that right now, it is a disaster in the Middle East. Both people have been suffering for generations.
Can
and
you
what
pause
I'm seeing
it one
in
more
Gaza
time?
is appalling, period. It's disgusting. If I were president, I would handle this quite differently. I would not allow tens of thousands of people to be killed. And frankly, I would not have allowed Israelis to be suffering like they have for generations. And I know none of us were alive during the Holocaust, but my goodness, you have no empathy for what it is like to be a Jewish person. None. And I'm telling you,
I would be the first one on the front lines trying to protect Jews during the Holocaust. And that's how I feel like I am right now, trying to protect the Palestinians during the atrocity against them. That's my position.
Congressman,
I don't hear you talk about that history at all.
Do you think it's understandable? Do you think
I don't live in 1940?
Do you think it's
right now.
understandable to prioritize an ongoing genocide? Do you think it's understandable? Do you think it requires you to be an anti-Semite to say that the most important foreign policy issue in the world right now is the ongoing starvation and genocide of an entire people and planned ethnic cleansing?
It's not, that ethnic cleansing.
Then why the fuck are you accusing these two people of being anti-Semitic or not having empathy with the Jewish people and with Israel? That makes no fucking sense, bro. And also, if you actually do care about anti-Semitism, which, by the way, Zach and I certainly do, Krystal and Kyle absolutely do, but to anyone that actually cares about anti-Semitism, Israel is like the number one villain, because guess who's creating the most anti-Semitism? It's fucking Israel. Israel is doing horrible war crimes in the name of Judaism, saying that their actions are on behalf of this entire religion, and that if you don't support said actions, then you don't support Jewish people. That's as anti-Semitic as it gets. And then, of course, unfortunately, it leads a lot of people to say, oh, okay, well, if Israel is Judaism and they're doing this horrible shit, then I must not support Judaism, which again is absolutely terrible for all of the innocent Jewish people across the world, which do not support the government of Israel, nor their apartheid and ongoing ethnic cleansing of Palestine. But again, they still have to suffer the consequences because in the eyes of a lot of idiots, again, Israel equals Jew, Jew equals Israel. So if you're actually this concerned about anti-Semitism, Dean Phillips, you should be even more mad about what Israel's doing than Krystal and Kyle.
100%. Yeah, it is crazy because it's like, depending on the context, you'll hear somebody say like, oh well, you're criticizing. They'll oh, you're not thinking about the Jewish people as you're criticizing Israel, right? And then the second you say, oh, well, X, Y, or Z, they'll be like, well, the Jewish people are not Israel. And it's like, well, fucking, you're trying to have your cake and eat it too. I understand the fucking Jewish people are not Israel. Why do you keep fucking calling me an anti-Semite for criticizing a fucking government policy? Of course, the Jewish people aren't Israel. I know plenty of Jewish people in my own day-to-day life. And I would say the vast majority, this is all anecdotal, but the vast majority of the people I know, and I'm a lefty and I kick it in lefty spears, of course they fucking oppose what's happening. They have a fucking conscience. Like, it would be abhorrent to fucking assume that the fucking, like, we've had plenty of Jewish guests on our show throughout the day that are like, no, this is deeply offensive to me that anybody would apply that like my faith is like a justification for this, right? It's in the same way that we were talking about how it was horrible and disgusting for anybody to imply that like, people who are of the Islamic faith were somehow like sympathetic to terrorism, or you know what I mean? Or if there was like fucking Christian jihad going on somewhere, like your local neighborhood pastor that's just trying to do good, like he's not sympathetic to that. Like they're just, some people grow up entrenched in religion and then governments will co-opt that shit and say that they're doing whatever operation that they want to. But what Dean Phillips is doing is he's falling for it hook, line, and sinker. As Kyle and Krystal are sitting here desperately trying to earnestly and authentically critique a government that is doing a literal fucking ethnic cleansing campaign and has persisted in an apartheid system for fucking decades, okay? And colonialism as a project after the entire globe said, hey, you know what? Maybe we should do less of that. They're like, no, we're fucking full steam ahead, soldier. We're not negotiating. We want more. He's like, why are you criticizing the very vulnerable Jewish population? Guess what, Dean Phillips? I think that there is a serious threat to the Jewish population, and I think a lot of them support Israel. Okay, do you guys remember the fuckers that were out there in Carolina? What was it? One of the Carolinas, like Charlottesville or something like that. I don't remember the fuck it was. The tiki torch fucking bastards, the white supremacists, the Ku Klux Klanners. They were out there with their tiki fucking torches saying Jews will not replace us. Guess who they endorsed? Donald Trump. Guess who fucking loves Israel? Donald Trump. People will say, oh, fucking Donald Trump hates Netanyahu. That's like bullshit revisionist history. You have to be dumber than rocks to believe that. And anybody that sells that to you is a liar. Donald Trump bent over a fucking barrel for Netanyahu and let him fucking whatever he wanted to. He loved Netanyahu and he loved the fucking perks that came from the party. That's why he had his fake peace. Remember when Donald Trump created peace in Israel and Palestine with his peace plan? Donald Trump's peace plan never had peace like we have now because of Donald Trump and his long-lasting plans for peace. Oh wait, it created a ginormous conflict that's spilling out now. Pretty crazy stuff. Anyway, we can let this clip play out.
And the genocide was against Jewish people during the Holocaust in the 1940s. That is true. Israel is not committing a genocide trying to eliminate an entire people.
All right, let me ask you.
They're trying to eliminate a terrorist organization that just killed 1,200 people in the most brutal fashion.
They're very bad at it.
I think it's
they
sickening.
actually have increased support for Hamas, and they have massacred vastly more civilians than they have, even by their own estimates, of Hamas fighters. But I want to ask one more question on this.
I think this all ends up. I have empathy for two types. I have empathy for both peoples, and it appears that right now all you want to talk about is empathy for one, and I understand that's your position.
And what's getting bombed?
One that's being massacred by the thousands on a daily basis. Okay,
what about
last question.
What about the 1,000 Israelis that were brutally attacked?
We
covered October 7th 1,000 times.
We covered it extensively.
We've never talked about this. You never talk about this. You only talk about the bad things Israel does. Why haven't you condemned Hamas? Where is the Hamas condemnation? Where?
That's the other line. I'm sorry, I forgot to say. I said they only had one line. You're an answer. So, but the other one is you haven't condemned Hamas enough. My mistake.
Yeah, dude, this is so fucking unhinged. These people just cannot help but fall into this trap of just self-parody. It's like, really? That's all you have to say? Why haven't you talked about October 7th? As if they haven't? Like, are you even aware of the people you're talking to? Like, he seems to be aware of Krystal and Kyle. He's been on Breaking Points. but I guess he's never consumed any of their actual coverage or content, because you would know they've spent lots of time talking about October 7th. In fact, I even remember Kyle at one point said that he, I forget what it was, but he disagreed with Norman Finkelstein at one point and said that he was like kind of crossing the line by comparing Hamas to, what was it, Zach? Some of the slave revolts or something. Kyle was like,
they made that movie about it that wasn't that good. Nat Turner, maybe.
Yeah. That. Kyle was like, I think that goes a little bit too far. Kyle has been anything but fucking anti-Semitic or unsympathetic to the Jewish people or to the people of Israel, the innocent people of Israel following the terrorist attack on October 7th. So it's just crazy.
Killed right now. Whose government is complicit in those killings right now? Okay, I can't call my local Hamas representative and tell him to cut it out. But I can talk to my member of Congress. I can talk to people who are running for president like you and the president of the United States who are sending our tax dollars to bomb babies. So the last question I have for you, and then we can move on potentially, is do you take Ben Gvir, Smotrich, and Netanyahu at their word that their end goal of this operation is to, quote, thin out the population of Gaza, to push a, quote, voluntary migration, which of course is not voluntary when your house has been bombed and your children are being starved. This was just in Haaretz, I believe, yesterday. Netanyahu considering scenario of surrender and deportation of Gaza residents. They're talking to countries as far afield as Congo to try to get them to accept the Palestinian refugees who are being pushed out of their homes. Do you accept their words that their end goal here is a complete ethnic cleansing of the Gaza Strip of Palestinians?
I don't know what to make of their words. I will tell you this, Krystal. The three men you just referenced, I think, are bad people, period. I'm going to leave it at that, period. And they're a big part of the problem for Israel and Israel's security and Israel's future. And I hope Israelis replace them because it is the only democratic nation in the entire region. Thank goodness Israelis will have that chance to do so, and hopefully soon, period. And they should be held accountable, as I said earlier, period.
A little bit of Dean Phillip action. Yeah, he had no sauce, no riz from Dean over there. A bad energy. Honestly, yeah, same old song and dance. I'm not impressed by it. I don't even understand what the fuck the point of his campaign is. Why the hell is he running for president? Jesus Christ, he's just a rollover. I think it's probably just to boost his profile. He's like one of those really delusional guys. He gives me like Deval Patrick energy. It's like, don't worry, America, I'll save us. And then it's like you get 1% in the polls. It's like, great job, pal. You got 1% in the poll.
Yeah, dude, I don't honestly understand what his end goal is here either. Apparently, he's actually severed, like, quite a few of his relationships in DC have kind of been sacrificed over this whole attempt to challenge Biden. There was a pretty interesting piece, I think it was like in Politico, about how he's kind of become ostracized by the Democrats in the House, his colleagues in DC. So yeah, he's kind of just doing this all for nothing. As I said, he has a few decent positions which are genuinely better than Biden's. Supporting Medicare for all is the big one. But yeah, it's like, if this is all you have, if this is your commentary on one of the most pressing foreign policy issues of our time, and you're running to be commander in chief, and this is all you have to offer, it's like, you really expect this to inspire anyone? If you're going to bullshit, at least do it with some charisma. But no, it's just like the confidence of a fucking carp, like I've said from the beginning, sitting there blubbering about how I'm the victim too.